they'll use their propaganda organs. In that paper, Japan 2040, I give just some of the recent headlines. They're horrifying. No U.S. newspaper would publish headlines as threatening as what you see daily in China Daily, in PLA Daily, in Xinhua, aimed at Japan. But those are daily threats, daily scoldings, daily humiliations of Japan coming out of the party state. Chinese Communist Party is the state in China, in the People's Republic of China. So what you see coming out on a daily basis through their propaganda organs is intense psychological warfare, intense media warfare against Japan. Now, you might say, as some do, who I've talked to in State Department, well, no one really reads that. Yes, they do. And that it's picked up those articles in Xinhua, those articles in China Daily, People's Daily, they're picked up and given bounce by international news media, some under the control of the PRC, but just other news media in general will give bounce to those threats, magnifying the intensity of the impact of the psychological warfare. Does that alone win the day? No, but it's all part of a widespread, again, what I call a combined arms attack that over time corrodes confidence, corrodes the ability, the will of a people to resist. Again, the threat of nuclear attack. Recently, we're going to bomb, we're going to drop atomic bombs on Japan, bomb after bomb until Japan, quote, surrenders again. These threats are terrifying to a nation that has been nuked. If the people of Japan, to hear that, it's okay, just give China what they want, okay? That way we won't get nuked again. So, yeah, these propaganda organs, this media warfare, the strategic psychological warfare does have an impact over time. So again, this is just some examples of the military, how the military intimidation ties into the part of their three warfares, the strategic psychological operations, and then their media warfare. It's all tied together. Elite capture, you can talk about that if you want. A lot, just like in the United States, the PRC has been pretty successful co-opting, bribing, coercing, enticing with honey traps, sexual enticement, elected officials, business leaders, using blackmail, bribery, coercion, persuasion, all the same tools that they've been so successful co-opting a good number of America's elites. They've used pretty successfully over the years in Japan. And Japan has fewer laws against that. It has fewer internal defenses that help them fight against that kind of invasive subversion from the PRC. Again, elite capture and goes into the political parties. The LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, is the overwhelmingly dominant party in Japan right now, but it has a pro-Beijing, a pro-CCP faction in it. The Democratic Party of Japan, which ruled from 2009 to 2012 and got into trouble and is no longer in power, in part because it was so obsequious to China, didn't stand up very well to them. Again, they have a very pro-CCP faction in it. So it's insidious, the infiltration within Japan's elites, the media as well. They're on Okinawa, which is a key political warfare battleground. Many of in fact, all the major news media there have either informal or informal relationships with the Xinhua and with other PRC propaganda organs. Imagine that, signing agreements with a totalitarian state propaganda organs. And you're from a democratic country that they want to overthrow. But that's the nature of the Okinawa news media.
So you mentioned Okinawa. What is the Chinese regime doing with respect to Okinawa? Because I know you'd written about this.
Okinawa, we won't get into the full history here, but Okinawa has the majority of U.S. military forces in Japan. And there's a fair amount of legitimate resentment because of the fact that so many Okinawans died during the Battle of Okinawa in World War II, the one major invasion of on Japanese soil. And so there's some true pacifists on Okinawa. There's some true pacifists in Japan. But in general, there's a lot of faux pacifists. There's a lot of fake pacifists under the guise of pacifism. Radical activists who historically have supported, going back to the Korean War, have supported the Chinese communists when they helped, when they came in and invaded South Korea during the Korean War. You've got a very close relationship between those radical activists and the CCP. I based this on a lot of interviews, but also personal experience as a counterintelligence officer in Japan. We know that there's a working relationship. We know there's funding lines. We know that there's other ways that that communist China has supported these groups over the years and worked together. So it is in China's interest to continue to obstruct the use of American military facilities in Japan. The more they can undermine those facilities and neighboring communities' support for those communities, the greater the chance is that those facilities cannot be effectively used in a crisis in Asia. The greater the opportunity to close down and remove those installations. Okay, so it's in Beijing's best interest to do everything they can to obstruct the daily operations of those bases, to try in the long term to get them out of Okinawa and out of Japan in general, to destroy the Japan-America Security Alliance. Okay, so take that question, the answer to your question, Matt, a step further. Those radical activist groups, some are legitimate. Some of the people there sincerely believe what they're doing is right. Some are terrorists. And this is something the U.S. government and the Japanese government need to do a lot better job of publicizing. They've been reticent, and I know because I've been on the inside of this for over 3 decades, or nearly 3 decades, put it that way.
I mean, Kerry, calling them terrorists is a pretty strong word. What does that mean?
Well, what would you call it when people who claim to be peaceful protesters trying to pursue pacifism put booby traps on fence lines on U.S. military installations? They put, I've seen this personally, sharp glass. They glue it. They cement it on walls. They cement it on. They use razor blades. Okay, that seems minor, you're saying. Well, what about when they attack the wives and children, school children, going to and from the base? What about when they physically attack the Okinawan workers on those bases? Well, now we're getting violent. This isn't pacifism. This isn't peaceful protest. These are physical attacks on the spouses and children of U.S. military personnel in Japan. Okay, go further. How about firing rockets into those bases? They've done that as well into airports in Japan, fired mortars into those bases. Okay, how about trying to use devices to include lasers to blind helicopter pilots and fixed-wing aircraft pilots, and using devices like balloons that they know will get caught in the jet engines of the aircraft, the fighter aircraft, and even the helicopter. They damage the helicopters of what they're sending up in the air. So they will cause an aircraft to crash, which they know is guaranteed to magnify the resentment against American military forces on Okinawa and in Japan in general. These are terrorists, Matt.
So why, like, this is horrible. Why is this not something that is talked more about?
The reasons I've been given, and again, I was inside the belly of the beast for a long time, and I was working at the strategic communications, counterintelligence, and other levels over the years. And the reasons given, the State Department people in Tokyo, our State Department would say, well, it's up to the government of Japan to pursue these issues. We're there as their guests. In Tokyo, the government of Japan in Tokyo was supposed to ameliorate the issues with the prefectural government. So we'll stay out of it and we won't publicize it. So that's one view that I got. The other was, well, we don't want to be seen as attacking protesters, the U.S. military, won't publicize this because we don't want to be seen as unmasking and attacking. We don't want to be seen as a Gestapo coming into as guests in a foreign nation, attacking peace or protesters, whether they're peaceful or not. We don't want to be seen as the ones going after them. Leave that for the government of Japan. Well, that's fine if the government of Japan actually will do that, but in all too many cases, it was just sort of let it go. We'll talk to them, but very rarely has there been criminal action taken against some of these people, and it's not hard to see them at nighttime coming up and booby trapping the fence line, putting anti-American signs up. And a simple example, but this is a daily thing that can damage our sons and daughters, our young 18, 19, 20-year-old airmen, Marines, soldiers, sailors that have to go out there every day and take off these anti-American signs. And then when they go out there, they slice their hands on rusty razor blades and on shards of glass that are adhered to the fence line. And, around the fence line, there's the equivalent of almost punji sticks that they have to step on to go out and just keep their base looking halfway decent on a daily basis. All this has happened in the past. So I can't give you a legitimate reason why we haven't done a better job of exposing what's been going on. I know there's always a concern as well when you talk to the intel community. Well, we don't want to expose our methods and sources for knowing who's behind this. And at least we used to know a lot of who was behind these activities. I can't say what the current state of play is over there, but we don't want to expose, to give away our methods and sources. So we can't really go after these people.